Welcome to the new video of Bachelor and Master English YouTube channel. As usual, I have come up with a new lesson, and that's a short story by Stephen Crane. This is entitled as An Episode of War. We are discussing this story today with summary in English and Nepali and the other analytical parts. So before I begin my discussion, I would like to request you all, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe it, and if you think this video is worth watching, and if my videos are worth watching, please like, share and comment on my channel. I would like to talk about the story here, An Episode of War. So this is An Episode of War, which is quite a short story by American writer Stephen Crane. It is an unexpected Stephen Crane jewel. The elements of realism and naturalism in Crane's An Episode of War are prevalent. Crane is best known for three short stories: The Open Boat, thought by many to be the best short story ever written; The Blue Hotel, and The Bride Comes to Yellow Sky. There are other stories. An Episode of War is perhaps the best known of other 10 Crane stories. The setting takes place in the Civil War. The story is mainly about the lieutenant who is hit by a bullet in the war. The people seem to be helpless. The author indicates that people's situation is dependent on their personal decisions or environment. An Episode of War captures the randomness, futility and danger of wartime, as the lieutenant is wounded while dividing up coffee for his men. A long-distance random shot wings his arm. He seeks out help and is given the wrong kind by a well-intentioned stranger. The story presents a very cruel picture of war, not only on the battlefield but also in the barracks or in the hospitals. People glorify war and the warriors, but only those people who are directly involved in the war know about its bitter realities. And the gruff doctor promises to take care of it without amputation, but amputation is performed. The lieutenant is greeted at home by family and friends and says, "Oh, I don't suppose it matters so much as all that." The lieutenant has seen so many die, be traumatized and having worse injuries, that he views his own as a lesser event. He got home alive. Many did not. As long as the soldier can fight, he is respected by all. But when he is wounded, he is treated badly because he is not fit for the war anymore. Even the family members do not glorify his boldness. The family members of the lieutenant started weeping and stood shamefaced. Then he made a conclusion that he could survive without one arm. So this is all about the introduction of the story, and let's go with the summary of the story in English. An Episode of War is a short story here. In this story we have a lieutenant who is dividing coffee for his troops in a camp behind their battlefield. The men wait eagerly as he draws portions on his blanket with a sword. Suddenly he is shot, but it takes everyone a minute to understand what just happened. The lieutenant tries to brandish his sword, but unable to do so with his arm wounded. He tries even more awkwardly to sheath it. The men stare helplessly, looking first at the lieutenant and then toward the distant forest where the bullet originated, until an orderly sergeant nervously steps up to help him. The man's over-carefulness captures the general feeling of vague fear, awe and respect that surrounds the newly wounded lieutenant. Sad, silent, and humiliated, the lieutenant departs slowly for the field hospital, glancing at the woods as he does so. As he passes the growing battle, he notices things that he never could before. The spectacle of war starts to appear beautiful and poetic. A general and his aide, an otherwise unremarkable sight, now appear colorful and remind him of a historical painting. The appearance of a battery as gunmen launch it into battle captivates him. He dwells on its sights and sounds even as it fares well beyond his sight. As the lieutenant makes his way to the hospital, he passes two groups of off-duty soldiers who make him feel increasingly ignorant and helpless. Incredibly, a group of stragglers seem to know everything about the fight, even facts that the lieutenant himself never learned well in the front lines. A while later, another group of officers belittles the lieutenant further when they ask him questions they can't answer. Worst of all, one officer from this gathering scolds the lieutenant like a parent for not dressing his own. Brashly, the man rips open the lieutenant's sleeve and attempts to dress it, all the while making the lieutenant feel shy and ignorant. The lieutenant finally arrives at the chaotic field hospital, which is a converted schoolhouse. A surgeon is kind to the lieutenant first, but then noticing his own becomes mean and cold. Begrudgingly tending to him, he mocks the lieutenant's inadequate bandage and calls him a baby when he shows fear. But the lieutenant, reduced and embarrassed, stops cold at the doors of the schoolhouse and refuses to enter. Despite the surgeon's insistence, the lieutenant is terrified of amputation. The lieutenant returns home. He has lost his arm after all, and his family weeps. He stands in shame as he tries to brush off their grip, insisting unconvincingly that the injury isn't as bad as it looks. Okay, this is all the story summary in English. Let me tell you the summary of the story in Nepali. यो स्टिफेन क्रेनबाट लेखिएको कथा एन एपिसोड अफ वार। यसमा कथाकार स्टिफेन क्रेनले एउटा सैनिकलाई कसरी युद्धभूमिमा लडाईँको भूमिमा कसरी हेरिन्छ र ऊ यदि घाइते भएर त्यहाँ चाहिँ उसको ब्यारेक को डफामा अथवा कहीँ चाहिँ अथवा कुनै ठाउँमा जान्छ भने उसलाई अर्कै तरिकाले हेरिन्छ। युद्धमा लड्न सकुन्जेल उसको मान्यता, उसको चाहिँ पौरख, उसको साहसको चाहिँ चर्चा गरिन्छ। तर त्यही मान्छे घाइते भयो अथवा अङ्गभङ्ग भयो अथवा केही भयो भने त्यसको अवमूल्यन गरिन्छ। अब उस त्यसमा लड्दा लड्दै ऊ जित्यो, उसको चाहिँ मृत्यु भयो भने उसलाई चाहिँ वीरगति प्राप्त गरेको भनिन्छ भने ऊ घाइते भएकोलाई चाहिँ एउटा समाजमा अपहेलित रूपमा हेर्ने गरिन्छ। यो कुरालाई चाहिँ कथाकारले कसरी एउटा प्रस्तुत गर्न खोजिरहेछन् भने एउटा चाहिँ यो दि एपिसोड अफ वार, युद्धको एक अङ्क, जुन युद्धको एक अङ्क कुनै एउटा फिल्मको एउटा चरण, विभिन्न अङ्कहरू एउटा टेलिसिरियलका अथवा कुनैका चाहिँ अङ्क जस्तै युद्धको एउटा अंश यहाँ चाहिँ प्रस्तुत गरिएको छ। यहाँ चाहिँ लेफ्टिनेन्ट एउटा पात्र छन्, उनले सैनिकहरूलाई कफी बाँड्नमा व्यस्त देखिन्छन्। युद्धभूमिमा खाद्यान्नको ध्यान राख्नुपर्छ जो लेफ्टिनेन्टले गरेका थिए। अचानक उनलाई दाहिने पाखुरामा गोली लाग्छ। सबै सिपाहीहरूले आश्चर्यजनक दृष्टिले यो घटना हेर्छन्। एकजना सिपाहीले उनको तलवार झिक्छन् र सबै त्यहाँ उपस्थित सिपाहीहरूले पनि सहयोग गर्न खोज्छन्। तर लेफ्टिनेन्टले कसैको सहारा लिन मान्दैनन्। उनी युद्ध भूमिको माझबाट जान्छन्। पहिलो पटक उनले युद्ध गरेको राम्रोसँग हेर्न पाउँछन्। सबै सैनिक आफ्ना आफ्ना स्थानमा अडिग छन् र तन मनले चाहिँ युद्धमा लडिरहेका छन्। सिपाहीको चिल्लाहट, गोली बारुदको आवाजले लप्टनको मन डराएको छ। लप्टन अगाडि बढ्दै जान्छन्। केही युद्ध नगरेका सिपाहीहरूको सहयोग गरी उनी युद्ध भूमिको अस्पतालमा पुग्छन्। अरू सैनिक अधिकारीहरू उनलाई हेर्न आउँछन्। एकजना अधिकारीले उनको घाउको अवस्था नहेरी त्यसमा रुमाल बाँधिदिन्छन्। पछि उनी अस्पताल पुग्छन्। एकजना व्यस्त शल्य चिकित्सकले उनको घाउ देख्छन् र भन्छन् कि उनलाई अङ्गभङ्ग हुनु पर्दैन, तिमी अपाङ्ग हुनु पर्दैन। तर लप्टनलाई विश्वास हुँदैन। त्यो जुन शल्य चिकित्सकले जे भनिराख्नु भएको छ त्यसमा उनलाई चाहिँ विश्वास हुँदैन। अनि उनी अपाङ्ग भइसकेका छन्। उनी पीडाले कराइरहेका छन्। जतासुकै दुःख बेला पनि देखिरहेको छ। एकजना लेफ्टिनेन्टको यही नै हो दुखान्त कहानी। जब उनी घर पुग्छन्, घरमा अरू परिवारहरू उनको अवस्था देखेर दुखी हुन्छन्। तर लेफ्टिनेन्टले आफूलाई केही नभएको जस्तो गरी आफूलाई सन्तुष्ट राख्न कोसिस गर्छन्। किन भन्दाखेरि उनले आफूभन्दा धेरै अङ्गभङ्ग भएका, धेरै अब मानसिक अवस्था विक्षिप्त भएका धेरै सेनाहरू र सबैको चाहिँ दुर्दशा पनि देखिरहेका छन्। उनीहरूको दुर्दशाको तुलनामा आफ्नो दुर्दशा, आफ्नो अवस्था त्यति नराम्रो नभएको ठानेको हुनाले उनले त्यो अरूले जति आफ्नो चाहिँ घाउलाई जति अथवा उनको जुन दायाँ हातको जुन भाग काटिएको छ त्यसलाई चाहिँ उनले चाहिँ त्यति महत्त्वको साथ उनले ठुलो क्षतिको रूपमा लिँदैनन्। यसरी नै एउटा लप्टनको एउटा सैनिकको प्रसङ्गसँग कथाको एक युद्ध कथाको एक अङ्क कथाकार स्टेफन क्रेनले प्रस्तुत गरेका छन्। यो कथाको चाहिँ एउटा प्रसङ्ग हेर्दाखेरि युद्ध विवश हुन्छ। त्यहाँ कसैसँग कसैको भर हुँदैन। कुन रिस उठेकोले कसले कतिखेर आक्रमण गर्छ, कसको ज्यान कतिखेर जाने हो थाहै हुन्न। यस्ता कुराहरू चाहिँ ठुल्ठुला सैनिक अधिकृतको पनि जीवन एउटा खतराजनक अवस्थामा छ भने सामान्य सैनिकहरूको चाहिँ अवस्था कस्तो होला। अब युद्धको भूमिमा मान्छेलाई कसरी हेरिन्छ, ब्यारेकमा कसरी हेरिन्छ, घरमा गाउँमा कसरी हेरिन्छ, सबै कुराहरू चाहिँ यो युद्ध लड्ने र युद्धको बारेमा विश्लेषण गर्ने मान्छेहरू को बिचमा एक खालको चाहिँ बेग्लै एउटा रूपमा चाहिँ युद्धलाई लिएको देखिन्छ। That's all the story in Nepali. So let's see the plot of the story here. Plot. Stephen Crane's short story, An Episode of War, describes that an incident that happens to soldiers in the Civil War. During a battle, a lieutenant is dividing the morning coffee when the swords ring out. The lieutenant is shot in the arm and the men crowded around. The others cries out also when they saw blood upon the lieutenant's sleeve. The lieutenant gets hurt and he wants to avoid amputation. Like other Stephen Crane's writing on war, this story is realistic and descriptive. It shows wartime from the point of view of the ordinary soldier. So this is the plot of the story, and let's see the theme. The shot officer had no control over the bullet. The soldiers had no control over the wound. The ambulance had no control when it got stuck into the mud. In the foreground, two ambulances interlock, wheels in the deep mud. The central event in An Episode of War is the lieutenant's wound and what happens afterward. As a wound gives strange dignity to him who bears it. His comrades look at him with large eyes thoughtfully. So this is the theme, and let's see the characters. Who are the characters in the story? The characters in the story are lieutenant, the officer, the spectators, and the doctor. Lieutenant is an alert character in the story because after he was shot in the arm, he was alert that someone was going to kill him. Officer, he is a determined character since he was determined to find who shot the lieutenant. Spectators, afraid people in the story because after the lieutenant was shot, he looked around as if one of them did it. Doctor, a helpful character because he saw that the lieutenant was wounded, he tried to help. Point of view. The story is told through the first person point of view because throughout the story he often used he or his. Setting. The story is set at the hospital in the battlefield. Imagery. Stephen Crane uses imagery to describe the lieutenant blanket with a supply of coffee on it that he forwarded for his companion. Now let's come to the final judgment of the story, final discussion. When we read this Stephen Crane's short story, The Episode of War, we feel that the scene on the front, the marching of the soldiers, the battle in the jungle, the pain of the wounded soldiers are taking place in front of our eyes. We also perceive the sympathy of the men, the scolding of the officer, and the contempt of the surgeon and the shock of the lieutenant's relatives. The description is most effective in the story as an aid in narrating the disillusionment of the lieutenant. It creates a vivid impression for the reader. The use of abundant details had made this story quite good. So this is all about the story's discussion. Today I discussed Stephen Crane's The Episode of War. And how did you get it? I'm sure you got the points. And if you have any queries, please put your points, put your comments in my comment box. Thank you very much for being with me. Goodbye. Have a nice day.